Alright guys, what's going on? Today we're going to be looking at how to make rotating objects inside of our obstacle course and be able to make it where we can have a variable to change the speed on each individual one. So we can add some modifications inside so that they're not all the same. We're also going to be looking at some pivot points to be able to look at how to rotate this properly. And yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so let's go ahead into our project here, and we're going to go into our content drawer, and under our blueprints folder, we're going to add a new blueprint class of type actor and name this something like BP underscore rotating, and we're gonna call this hammer, for example. Let's open this up. Let's add a new static mesh and name this hammer. Now we're just going to use a basic cube for an example, but like you could add whatever you would like as far as a mesh. So let's go ahead and create our cube that we're going to use to swing. We're going to go up to the selection mode and under modeling. Okay, so the reason we're doing this part is if I was to add a simple cube, for instance, and let's stretch this out. We're just trying to make this rotate. So if I got our rotate tool, you notice how it's just spinning around the middle here. That's not going to work out for us. So we're going to delete that, and we're going to go to our modeling tab here, and under box, we're going to drag this and make the height taller, and let's add some sort of material. Let's just make it metal. And what we're going to do here is on pivot location, instead of base, which is right here, we're going to make it on the top. All right, now let's drag this up. So now our pivot location is up here. When we rotate it, it'll swing like this. Great. Hit accept. And there's our box. Let's go ahead and see if we can rename this. All right. Let's go to selection, our rotating hammer. And what I can do here is if I shift right click on our mesh down here in the details panel, and then go to our rotating hammer and shift left click, it'll actually copy and paste that over to our viewport. So now let's drag this up, and that's kind of how we want it. Let's hit compile, and let's go to our event graph. Delete these, we just need the event tick. Let's drag out from here and add a timeline. All right, and then if we double click the timeline, we can go ahead and add a new track of type float and name this like rotation. And I spelled that wrong, ignore that. Let's go ahead and in our timeline, if we right click in here, we can add a key to the float curve. So if we add 3 of these, I found this is kind of the best way. Just add 3 key points. And the length here, we're just gonna make it maybe like 3, maybe 2 seconds long. Yeah, let's make it 2 seconds long. And then on each of these points, we're going to set it so that whenever it rotates, it's gonna start in one position, it's gonna rotate to the other, and then rotate back to the starting position. So that's what we're trying to do. So on the first point, let's go ahead and set the time to 0. And then the value, we're gonna make it like -0.5. And then on our second point, we're going to set it to, since our time length is 2, we're gonna set this over to 1, and then we're gonna set the value to 0.5. And then on our last one, we're going to set the time to 2, because that's where it's going to end at. And we're going to set the value back to where it started. And then we're going to go up and loop it so that it plays over and over. And in our event graph, there's our timeline. Now if we go to update, we can set relative rotation for the hammer. And what we're going to do is right click the rotation and split the structure pin. Okay, now we need to add it so that it gets the rotation and multiplies it into the X, Y, or Z value. So in our rotation, we're going to multiply. And what we can do here is we can plug it straight in to the X value. Since we're using a cube and it's just around the X and the Y, it doesn't matter which rotation it is, it's fine. But if you're using a mesh, you just come in here and find out what you would have to do, whether it's the X, Y, or Z value. So you just plug that into whichever you need to rotate. But what we're gonna do is, if we had, let's say, multiple instances of this, we would need to set it so that some of them are different and customizable. So if we go to our event graph here and hit add a variable, we're going to add one called rotation speed. And we're gonna make this type float. And we're gonna click the eyeball here and make sure instance editable is checked. And there we have it. We're gonna hit compile and drag this into our multiply node. All right, and we're gonna hit compile again on the whole thing. Now, if we delete these are just the static objects. We can drag our blueprint into the world. And let's see here. If we click on one of them, we can actually go down here to the details panel and set the rotation speed. So let's say I set it to 50 and then this one to 100. Now they're going to rotate at different speeds, and we can drag as many as we want and set them to different lengths and different speeds and kind of customize them that way. Okay, so now that we have an instance where we got some different blueprints that we can change the speed, let's go ahead, and if you notice that it's kind of wonky here, let's go to the timeline and let's go, if you don't know how to get to the timeline, just go back, double click into the timeline, and then we're going to select all of these key points that we had, right click and break these. What this is going to do is compile. If we go back in, it's going to make this a lot smoother, like it's swinging. So that's a neat trick. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. I know this is all simple stuff. Later on, I'll make a video on how to replace these with different meshes. So for instance, a moving platform, we can make it like a floating island, or you know, instead of a swinging cube, it'll be a hammer. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Peace.